Hi there. Welcome to Sparrow Quilt Company's Stash Buster series. My name is Bradie, and today you are going to be keeping me company while I cut up all my fabrics to make this great quilt. It's called Stay Centered. It's been designed by our very own Sheila van der Linden, and it is a great quilt for using up any fabrics in your stash. And yesterday, if you were watching, I spent the entire day cutting out all my choices. I've taken out of my shop stash in order to make this quilt, and today you're going to be watching while I use my strip cutting ruler to make all of these into 2.5-inch strips and then various sizes in order to make this quilt. So let's get started, shall we? I had a couple of messages last night from a few different people who were watching, and the common theme seems to be that they just don't know where to start when it comes to busting down their stash. And I think that's really fair. We accumulate a lot of fabric and we all store it, organize it in different ways. And I personally love to buy entire collections. So I'll buy like a fat quarter bundle. And when you buy those, you know, all your fabrics from that collection are tied into a beautiful little bundle, but when we go to do this type of project where things are organized by colorway, that isn't necessarily very helpful. So my biggest piece of advice in that regard is start by sorting your stash. Instead of keeping it in all those beautiful little bundles, you can break them down, or take your yardage, take your fat quarters, take all your random bits and pieces and start organizing all your greens together. Organize all your blues together and start breaking it down like the rainbow. Follow the Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and organize them all by color. And then you end up with like a beautiful display, just like you can see behind me here, of beautiful colors. And for some reason that just makes your fabric feel a little bit more usable, and it's not trapped into this gorgeous little collection where you feel like you can never break that down or use it, because I understand, I feel the same way about a lot of my fabrics. So if you find that you're just paralyzed by the beauty of those fabrics, try doing that. Break them down into colors, and hopefully that will help you. And if you aren't quite ready to bust into that stash, that's okay too. Just watch and follow along and have some fun with us while we get started on this quilt, and maybe on the next one, as we're going to be doing this all year long, maybe the next one you'll be a little bit more ready to take that plunge into chopping up your favorite fabrics. Now, another thing that I mentioned yesterday is that this pattern calls for a lot of fat eighths, and a fat eighth is just half of a fat quarter. So if you have one really prized fat quarter, what you could do for this project is cut it in half, put half of it back into your stash where it's safe and you never have to use it if you don't want, and then you can put half into this project, and maybe you'll be so awestruck by its beauty that you're just going to have to go back and use that other half of a fat quarter. All right, so because my ruler really helps me cut through lots of layers, I am going to stack up my fabrics. I'm not just going to do one at a time, because we all know that is very labor intensive and very time consuming, and I am impatient and I like things to get done quickly. So I'm going to stack these babies up, and then I'm going to cut through them all at one time. I'm going to organize them so that I've got the selvage edge towards myself. And while it's not square, at least it's fairly straight. It gives me a little bit of a baseline. Hi, Dorothy from North Carolina. Thanks for watching today. Tuning in from so far away. How's your weather down there, Dorothy? We're finally getting a bit of warming up here, I'll tell you. We're happy about that. And thanks for sharing the questions. I've got Landon here, my daughter. She is going to be sharing any questions that you've got, so feel free to type them in the comments. All right, so I've got 7 red or pink fat eighths here. And I am just lining them up as best I can. I'm going to square that edge first before I do any cutting, so they don't have to be perfectly lined up. And this isn't a very wide piece of fabric. A fat eighth, in case you don't know, is about 9 inches wide in US value. In Canada, we cut them about 10 inches wide, so you get a little bit more in Canadian yardage. And the length of it is 22 inches. We are going to be cutting, I believe it's 3 2.5-inch strips, which is a total of 7.5 inches. This is either 9 or 10 inches wide, so you've got a little bit of leeway there. If you need to trim up one side to square it, you've got that little bit of room. We're not going to be using every single thread of this fabric. Now, this is my strip cutting ruler, and on this side I've got what's called slip stop. It's a bit of a sandpaper, and it really holds the ruler in place. Hopefully you can see it there. Can I show you a close-up? Can you see it? So that slip stop edge, like I said, it's just like sandpaper. It really holds things in place. Really holds things in place and keeps that ruler from slipping while we're doing our cuts. I don't know about you, but my ruler slips and slides all over the place, so I really like that slip stop. All right, hopefully you got a good look at that. What I'm going to do is bring it over and just line it up. I'm using a horizontal line on my cutting mat to line up my selvage edge of my fabrics. And the great thing about this cutting mat in particular is that its markings are accurate. It is safe to cut using the markings on this cutting mat. You will get accurate cuts if you do that. So I've got my horizontal line lined up here, and I'm going to just trim off this extra little edge so that I'm starting with a nice square starting point. Okay. That can just go in the confetti pile. Save that for Landon's wedding in the spring maybe. And now I'm ready to start cutting my 2.5-inch strips. Now if you're not familiar with the strip cutting ruler, the unique thing about it is that it's got this slider on the back. I can adjust this width to whatever width of strip that I'm cutting to a maximum of 6 inches. And I am cutting 2.5. So I have moved my slider over so that I'm at the 2.5-inch mark. And I'm going to use it with my numbers right side up so that I can see what I'm doing. That slider is going to bump right up against my raw edge of my fabric. And there's a nice dotted line here. Maybe I'll give you a quick little close-up. This little dotted line here, Landon, can they see that well on the screen? I'm going to line that up with my bottom horizontal edge, my selvage edge, and that's going to make sure that my ruler is square.
Cheryl says she's new to your site and new to Quilting.
Hi, Cheryl. Welcome.
Dorothy also says it's very cold.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dorothy. Stay inside, put on some warm socks, and make some quilts. That's what winter's for, isn't it? Making quilts. All right, so I got myself all lined up here, and I'm going to cut my first 2.5-inch strip. Now, it was 7 layers of fabric, so I guess in reality I just cut 7. I need to cut a total of 3 in my reds. I better make sure before I get too far. Yep, red, 3 strips, 2.5 inches wide by the length of fabric. So again, I'm lining up my dashed line on the horizontal. My slider marks my vertical, keeps me nice and square. And what I love about this ruler is that I can cut through loads and loads of layers. Like I mentioned, I am impatient and I just want to get the job done. Okay, so this is going to go over into my leftovers, and my 3 stacks of red 2.5-inch strips are now ready to be subcut into smaller pieces. Landon, will you please pass me the 2.5-inch strip ruler there? Thank you very much. So this is my companion ruler for my 6-inch strip cutting ruler. It's a 2.5-inch wide channel, so I'm going to be able to use this ruler to cut my different sizes of squares and logs in order to make up all my pieces for my quilt. Now, if you've just tuned in, again, my name is Bradie. I'm working today on the Stay Centered pattern. This is the first in our Stash Busters series. We are going to be helping you with free patterns and tutorials in order to help you use up that stash of fabric you've accumulated. And if you don't want to use up your stash and you just want to shop, that's fine too. I'm not going to hold it against you because I love to buy fabric too. Who doesn't? That's why we're quilters, right? That's what brought us into this in the first place. So we are going to now cut 7 2.5-inch squares. So in order to use the strip cutting ruler, I need to adjust the slider on here. It has a slider just like the 6-inch strip cutter ruler does. And on the slider there is a little line, and I'm going to line up that line with my 2.5-inch marking on my ruler. And I'm going to turn that wing nut so that it stays in place. I don't want it shifting around once I get started. And this ruler has, I'm going to put it here, hopefully you can see it. There are higher edges on this ruler. It creates a channel and it just locks your fabric strip in place in that little area there, so there can be no shifting around. Your fabric will not fishtail and give you a hard time. Now again, I need to trim up the edge. I'm going to turn this around so that it's in the right position. I've got uneven edges here, so I am going to make sure they're all past this marking, and I'm going to use the edge of my ruler to square that up. Okay, confetti pile again. Now I'll lay that out nice and flat, and I'm going to bring my strip cutting ruler and I'm going to slide it onto the strip up until it bumps into the slider. And now this little section between the slider and where I'm about to cut is 2.5 inches, and I've already cut the width at 2.5, so I'm going to have 7 perfect little 2.5-inch squares here. And those are going to be this part right here of my log cabin blocks. All right, so let's check that off. We've done that one. 7 times 2.5. All right, next we need 14 2.5 by 4.5s. So because I'm 2.5 inches wide, now I have to set this at the 4.5-inch mark. So I'm going to loosen my wing nut and just slide that along until the marking on my slider is lined up. Hi there, how are you? We're just doing a little live show here, but you're welcome to come on in and shop. All right, so I've got that set now for 2.5 by 4.5, and I'm going to cut 14 in total, so I need to do 2 cuts of this size. I got it trapped in between those edges. And there's 7. One more cut to make 14. All right. So now I've got step B complete. My next step is 2.5 by 6.5. So let's see how much I've got left here in this strip. I'm going to be able to get my 6.5 out of this. But I also need an 8.5, so maybe I should look ahead and see if I can be a bit more efficient and less wasteful. So this will make an 8.5. I'm going to set that aside for now. I'm moving to my second pile of 2.5-inch strips. And again, I'm going to square up this first edge. We want to start nice and square so that everything's precise. And what were we cutting this time? 6.5, right? So again, I have to move my slider, loosen that wing nut, and slide that along to the 6.5-inch. Tighten that up, slide that onto my strips. Keep everything nice and flat. There's one for the 6.5 pile, and here is a second one. Good, so there we have our 2.5s, our 4.5s, and our 6.5s. Now again, if you are just starting with us, we are making the Stay Centered pattern. This is first in our Stash Buster series, and this is a free quilt pattern. You can get it on our website at sparrowquiltco.com. You just go there, put your name and your email into the little form, and you will get an email in reply with this pattern attached. So go ahead and get that now so that you can follow along with what I'm doing. Now, the next number we had to cut was what? Do you remember? 8.5. So this one's long enough for 8.5, as is this one. So I'll cut these two next. What are we going to do first? Move that slider, right? Okay, shuffle that along to the 8.5. Tighten that up, and here we go. Okay, one pile done. And here comes the next one. Now, if you don't move these around too much, unlike myself, I've been shuffling everything everywhere, your piles will stay nice and square, which is good. We don't want to have to adjust things back into place too much. It decreases our accuracy. Oh, it was already open. Don't leave your blade open, kids. Okay, so now we have cut our 6.5s and our 8.5s. Next, we need 7 2.5 by 10.5, and we should have enough out of that last strip there. All right, we are making good progress already. So first step is going to be to square up that edge. Just put this big guy out of the way. Give myself a bit more room here. What are we cutting? 10.5 this time. So move my slider up to the 10.5. And don't forget, if you have these rulers and you're going to be using them, it's not the bottom edge you're lining up. There's a little marking line in the center of the slider. You're going to line up that center line with your 10.5 inch marking, or whatever your marking of choice is. We're going to square up first. Trim off those ends, and now I can get my 10.5. Give that a slice, and move this one over. And this will be our last cut for the reds. All right. So now I have all my reds cut out, and I can move on to my next color. So I got my 2.5s, 4.5, 6.5, 8, and 10.5. I'm going to check them all off because I love checking stuff off my list. Okay. Get a sip of my coffee. Okay. So these, I'm just going to put them off to the side. Did I cut those right? Good. All right. These can all go over here. Now the next color on my list in my Stay Centered pattern is blue. So let's go back to my little kit that I made up yesterday. Were you watching yesterday? Did you get to laugh at any of my singing? I didn't know that we were live, and I'm singing away, and I'm talking to customers, and it turns out that I was actually live streaming on Facebook. So If you didn't get a chance to see that, go back and have a laugh at me. I'm here for your entertainment. All right. So, like I said, we are working on the Stay Centered pattern. It's a free pattern that you can download at sparrowquiltco.com. You just have to put in your email address and it will reply with an email and the pattern attached. And then you can follow along in our Stash Busters series, where we are making an effort to help you use up your stash with some free patterns and tutorials. Did any of you get fabric for Christmas? If you already own it, it's part of your stash. It doesn't matter how old it is. So if you want to use that new fabric you got for Christmas, you go right ahead. You have my permission. I just busted into some fabric the other day, and I knew I had had it for quite a while, but when I looked up when the fabric was released, I was surprised to see that it was October of 2008. And that's probably my oldest fabric. It was my first really big splurge when I began quilting. You may or may not know that Matt and I have 10 children. So that was back in the days when we only had 8. And to splurge like that on fabric was a big deal. Hey. just 10 now. So anyways, I've been hoarding that fabric for all these years, nearly 10 years, holding on to it, petting it, take it out, fondle it, fold it back up, put it away. And I decided the other night, enough. I'm going to use this fabric up. And I chopped it all up, and I'm really excited to use it for one of our future Stash Buster projects. But I'm quite happy with how it's coming along. So that's good news. When you use your favorite fabric, you want to love it. All right, so again, I'm going to start by squaring up my edge. I better just make sure we're all over that line. And I got my slip stop on my ruler, so even if I try to wiggle it around, it's going to stay right in place. And again, I've got 7 layers of fabric here, so I am going to get this done quickly. Oh dear. I didn't start cutting soon enough. I missed that first little edge. There we go. That's better now. Oh, did you close your cutter, Bradie? No? All right. So again, we're cutting 3 2.5-inch strips. I better make sure. Cut 3 strips 2.5 inches wide. So I've gone back to my 6-inch strip cutting ruler, and again, I've got that set at 2.5 inches. I'm going to line up the slider right with my raw edge of fabric. I'm going to go ahead and make that cut. Good. Get that right out of the way. Do one more. Are any of you quilting while you watch today? You can share what you're working on. We love to see other people's projects. It's a great thing about quilting and working in a shop is that you get to see so many great quilts. It's so inspiring. All right, so that is my extra pile. I'll put that over here. Put this guy aside for now. And now I'm ready to start subcutting again. I think we're going to be cutting the same sizes as last time. Yep, just like my reds, we'll be cutting all the same, except for the last step. So I just got to keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on me, okay, so I don't get into trouble. So these shuffled a little bit on me. I'm going to try and line them back up so that they're not wonky. But the nice thing about that channel on my ruler is it just kind of shuffles everything back into a neat little stack. So hopefully that happens today. All right. Line that up and bring this guy back over. And remember, we got to move our slider back down to the 2.5-inch mark. So I'm going to be using the center line on my slider, lining that up with 2.5. And then I'll tighten up my wing nut. Don't forget to square that first edge. All right, so now I need a 2.5. Yeah, 7 2.5s. Okay. There you can see I cut through all 7 layers. Check that off. Now next I need 12 of the 2.5 by 4.5, so I got to adjust my slider again. Move that up to the 4.5 inch line. Tighten that into place. And then I can go ahead and make that cut. So I've got 7 layers of fabric here, but I need 12, so I'll do 7 first. Rather than exclude any, I'm just going to go ahead and cut another 7, and then I can sort out which ones I want to use or don't want to use later. I'll have 2 extras from that. Again, with the 6.5s, we're going to cut 12. But this big piece, like last time, I'm going to use that for my 8.5. So I'm going to start on a new strip, and I will trim up that edge first. And then what am I cutting this time? 6.5. So let's move our slider once more. I've got it at 6.5. What I like best about this, nope, I've got it good. Okay, I'm doubting myself. I like this ruler because I don't have to think, and I don't have to check once, twice, 3 times. It's already set, so I know as long as I've set it correctly, I'm going to be fine. So that was 7 of the 6.5 inch logs. Now I need another 5. Okay, so I got my 2.5s, my 4.5s, my 6.5s, and now I'm going to cut my 2 8.5s. So again, I'm sliding. Slide that into place, and then I'll go ahead and cut that. This is already square, so I can just go ahead and make the cut. Now, finding my table is a little bit low, so I'm going to go ahead and raise it up so I'm not bending over so much. This is a great table with the electric lift built into it. I can set it at whatever height I like. It's nice, it makes it easier for me to share with Matt as well, since he's tall. Now here I'm in a bit of trouble. I don't have quite enough. I'm into my selvage, so I'm going to take off that top one and see how it does. That'll be fine. Now I only need 12 of these, right? So I can set aside a couple of these fabrics and still be okay. And anything with a drastically different selvage is going to go. So be careful when you're cutting. Make sure you're watching for that sort of thing. You don't want to be losing any of your valuable stuff. Landon, can you come and help up front here for a second? All right, so I've got myself set for my 8.5, and I'll trim those off. One pile of 8.5s. Now that was a pile of 7. I took 2 out, so I've only got 5 cuts there. I'm going to need all 7 of these. There we go. And I'm safer this time. I'm not into my selvage. All right. So don't let me forget, I've only got the exact number of the 8.5s. My last cutting, I haven't been checking off my list, you guys. Ooh, the 10.5s, we only need 5 of those. So I've got to start by trimming. Squaring that first edge, I mean. There we go. And I better slide this before I cut so that I get the accurate number I'm after. Set that for 10.5. I jokingly call this quilting for dummies because I literally don't even have to think. I just put it on there and I don't have to double check anything or question myself. Okay, so I've cut 7. I only need 5, so I've got a couple extras in there. That wraps up my blues. I really like to sort these as I go so that I don't have a bunch of junk left over. Do you keep that kind of stuff? Those itty bitty little pieces? Not me. It's out of here. Okay, so I've got my 10.5s, my 8.5s, my 6s, my 4s, and my 2.5s. My blues are done. Are you just tuning in? Today we are working on a stay-centered quilt pattern. It's the first in our Stash Buster series. It is a free pattern that you can find at sparrowquiltco.com. Just go ahead, put your name and email in the little fields there, and you will be able to receive this pattern free by email. It is something that we're starting for the new year, using up what we have and busting up our stash. But that's not the rule. If you feel like shopping, you feel free to go ahead. Nice armful of packages there, Chase. At the shipping department there, coming through with all their packages. What's that? Oh, so I'm just showing off my table here. It has an electric lift on it, and I love that because it makes it so that all of us here in the shop can use it. Matt is considerably taller than the rest of us, so when he is ever cutting anything, he can raise the table up to a height that's more appropriate for him. I like using this table to sew at. I often will stand while I'm sewing. I can also angle it so that I can sit at one end and sew. You'd be surprised how ergonomically correct it is to tilt your table while you're cutting or sewing. And of course, you would want to put the non-slip mat on this end of the table so that your sewing machine does not fall off and die an awful death, because we all know how expensive sewing machines are, right? You need great tools for your hobbies. Pardon me, just stealing a sip of coffee there. All right, are we ready to move on to the next color? Have you downloaded your pattern yet? Go over to Sparrow Quilt Co. and download that pattern so that you can follow along. And if you aren't quite ready, I hope you're at home sorting your stash by color. And the good thing about this quilt too is that it's not huge. It's a good size, 60 by 70, so it's a nice size to use as a throw. Just put over the couch and keep you warm in the evening while you're watching your favorite show or reading a good book. But it's an attainable goal. I like that. I meet a lot of first-time quilters who start with like a king size and they feel like it took forever. It doesn't feel like there's any reward in it. So sometimes starting a bit smaller is a good idea. So I've got 7 greens here and I am just layering them all up with the selvage side towards me. Gives me a little bit of a straight edge to start with. And I got a good variety here. Don't be picky when you're making this quilt. Go through your stash and just pick all kinds of different stuff. You don't want it to be too matchy-matchy. Then you won't have any interest in your blocks. You want some variety in there. Something to give your eye to look at, like that bright green. How could you miss that? Good pop of color. It was fun yesterday choosing all these fabrics. If you didn't watch the video yesterday, go find it on the Facebook page there and have a look. But I got to pretty much reintroduce myself to all the fabrics in my own shop. Found some linens, different kinds of solids. And you'll feel that too when you go through your own stash at home as you start to organize it. You can organize it by size or you can organize it by color or whatever works for you. I'm really starting to lean towards color. As I mentioned before, I'm a real shopper of lines of fabric, say buying, a full bundle, all of it. And then when you have it like that and you keep it in those pretty collections, it doesn't feel very usable. So if you bust it out of those bundles and organize it by color, you may find that that makes it easier for you to use it. All right, so I've got everything lined up. I've got my horizontal line along the bottom squared up on my cutting mat. And don't forget that the lines on these cutting mats are accurate. So if you're going to cut using the lines on your cutting mat, your cuts will be accurate and precise, which we all know is a very good thing. So I've got my strip cutting ruler lined up to square this first edge. And I'm going through 7 layers of fabric here. Now I get a lot of questions about my ergonomic rotary cutter. You can see that it's shaped very different compared to your typical rotary cutter, and the guard is a little bit different as well. The one thing that's really important is to make sure that you've just got that handle snugly into the palm of your hand, and you're actually going to push with the palm of your hand, whereas I find with a traditional rotary cutter, I'm just pushing down with my index finger, so I get a lot of wrist strain and I get a lot of index finger strain, and this cutter virtually eliminates all of that. You can even use this cutter sitting down. So that is a good thing for those of us who can't stand for a long period of time. Or you can get one of these tables, lower it down to sitting height, and do your cut sitting. Ha-ha, how about that? Okay, so I'm back to my strip cutting ruler again. I've got it set at the 2.5 inch mark, at least my slider on the back is set for 2.5 inches. I'm going to line up the slider right with my raw edge of fabric. And I love about this ruler, this finger guard, that my finger cannot slip off. I'm always scared I'm going to chop off my finger and bleed on something. Then I have to wash it. Do you pre-wash your fabrics? I don't. Because I use a lot of pre-cuts. I don't like to pre-wash my fabrics. Mm-hmm.
The instructions that they were sent, there's multiple quilt size options.
Yep.
Whichever
one they want. Yep. I mean, it's 1 day of piecing. Pardon me, everybody. We're just talking about a class that's happening next week. There's 3 sizes of quilt that's been offered. The baby size quilt they could probably do in the day versus the queen is not an attainable goal for a single day. But of course, they can take it home and finish it. So that's Natalia Bonner that we've got coming next week. I don't know if you follow her. She used to be called Peace and Quilt. But she's awesome. Awesome. She's got all kinds of books out. I've got her fabric line over here. I'd show it to you if I could, but we are excited that Natalia is coming. All right. So I'm cutting 3 2.5 inch strips out of these fat 8s. Oh no. I hate it when that happens. One little thread on the bottom fabric didn't cut. All right. It's okay. It's going to be okay. So like I mentioned earlier, there is a dotted horizontal line at the bottom of this ruler, and I line that up with the bottom edge of my fabric, and that makes sure that I'm nice and square. And the slip stop sandpaper on the back edge of my ruler stops things from swaying around. I've got everything in place. And that final cut for green is done. Close your blade. Be a good girl. Don't chop off your hands. I shouldn't say be a good girl. Be a good quilter. I should not assume, because I'm married to a man quilter. All right. We're now ready to do our subcuts. So that means I'm going to put away this big guy for a moment. And the edges on this one are really varied. So I'm going to have to be extra careful. Now let's see. This time I need 7, 10, 10, 10, and 5. Good. Okay. So I got to square up my first edge to make sure that everything is nice and straight before I begin. Good girl, Susan. I agree. You know, it just behaves differently after you wash it, doesn't it? I have pre-washed. I made a quilt that was all reds and whites, and I was worried that my red was going to bleed into my white. That's the only time I've ever pre-washed my fabrics, I swear. I just don't like how they behave. There's no life left to them, and I had to starch it, and that just seems like extra work.
We don't like it.
My washing machine is for clothes. Okay, so now we're back to 2.5. So I got to move my slider back down. If you've just tuned in, this is my handy dandy 2.5-inch strip cutting ruler. It's got a slider on the back, and I can set that to whatever length I like. The width is limited to the 2.5 inches, and it's got those little guards on the side that just trap your fabric in that channel, keeping your cuts nice and accurate. You can't get any fishtailing or swaying around. And the slider has a mark at the middle point. That mark is going to be what I line up with my 2.5. So I've got that in place now, and I'm going to spin that wing nut. I'm like that. Just make shit up. All right. So I'm going to lock that into place, and this is now a 2.5-inch square. I'm going to go ahead and cut that. I need 7 of those, so it'll just be a single cut in the 2.5-inch department. There we go. Aren't those swans pretty? Can you see them? I'll put them over here. I know his tail's chopped off, but that's okay. He's still pretty. So that was my 2.5s. Did you check it off your list? I did. All right. Next is 10 2.5 by 4.5. So again, I'm sliding. Slide that center mark up to the 4.5, tighten it in place, and slide it onto my strips. Now that's something different about this cutter as well. I just have to make that initial cut, and it disengages the safety guard. The only thing I suggest is remembering to put it back. We don't want to be injuring ourselves. So that's 4.5s. Oh, I need 10 of those, so I better make 2 cuts because that was only 7 layers of fabric. All right, now I've got a couple extra, but that never hurt anybody. That's my 4.5s. Morning, Ryan. Are we still mourning? Okay. 4.5s, let's move on to 6.5. So we're going to need 10 of those.
Cindy from Texas says hi. She loves you. Loves.
Oh, thank you, Cindy. I'm so glad you're watching. Facebook is just amazing to me. It's really, really cool how you can be friends with someone halfway across the world and see what they're doing on a daily basis. I just think it is crazy. We went down to the Houston Quilt Show, Landon and I, and it was really fun to walk the floor and actually meet people. I had one lady introduce herself as her Instagram handle. She didn't even tell me her real name. She said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so from Instagram." And that just made me laugh because if she had said her name, I would have had no idea who she was. But this online thing is really, really cool. And it's why you guys are all watching me today. So thanks for watching and joining in. If you just joined us, I'll let you know that we are working on the Stay Centered pattern. It is the first in our Stash Busters series. You can find this pattern, Stay Centered, at sparrowquiltco.com. You're going to go there and put in your name and your email, and you'll get an email in reply with the pattern attached to it so you can follow along with us. And like we talked about earlier, not everybody is ready to chop up their stash, and that's okay. Just start by organizing it. And you know what? It's really great because you get to get in there and touch all your fabrics and feel them all and fold them and sometimes smell them. I don't know, do you like to smell fabric? Yeah, I'm a weirdo. That's okay. I like to smell books too. That one's fair. It says, and that's why I don't like iBooks because I can't smell them. I'm a super nerd. I'll admit it. It's true. Okay, focus. Do you remember yesterday when I told you I was a fruit fly? Now you've seen it in action. Literally, no attention span. Okay, so we are set here for 6.5s. I need 10 in the 6.5. So I've got that all lined up, and we're going to go ahead and make that cut. 10, that's 7. So I'm going to need to make another cut, but first I'll square this edge. Boy, I can tell it's getting warmer outside. It is hot up in here today. Not like Houston hot, but like it's warm.
Dina loves the feel and smell of fabric also.
Yes.
I might have to repeat that. I don't know.
Dina says that she likes the feel and smell of fabric as well. So I'm really glad, Dina, thank you for sharing that I'm not alone, because Landon seems to think I'm a weirdo. Okay, so this one little fabric is way down in the pile. I have to square a little bit further down because it's a shorty, but I have to always square that first edge to make sure that everything is precise. Have you ever put together a quilt and, you know, things just weren't precise, things weren't square, and it makes it a lot harder to work with, a lot harder to put that thing together. So I really am a fan of being precise in my cutting because everything builds upon that. Everything depends on that precise foundation to proceed well. So take your time when you're cutting and do a good job of it. And if you own these strip cutting rulers already, you can buy them individually, or you can buy the 6, or you can buy the full package of them. They really are almost foolproof and very easy to work with. Like I said earlier, I call it quilting for dummies. Me talking about myself. I don't have to double check anything. I just set it, make my cuts, and I know I'm good. Okay, so this is my second pile of 6 1/2s. And now I can check that off my list. Again, she smells books, she checks off lists, she's clearly a super nerd. Okay, my next set is 2 1/2 by 8 1/2. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide my little slider up to 8 1/2 and lock it back in place. And I'm gonna need 10 of those. So I'll have to cut twice out of there. So I'm getting a little bit tight on my fabric. I just got to be careful, but I've got enough. But the good thing is you would still have one more 2 1/2 inch strip out of your fat 1/8 if you needed it. Okay, so that's an 8 1/2. We're going to go ahead and cut that. That'll be extra. There's 7 of those. All right. So now here, I just want to measure to make sure I've got enough. I'm going to need a 10 1/2 and an 8 1/2. So that's going to be 19 inches. I'm going to have enough. I will be fine. The other night, I was cutting up my precious fabric from 2008 that I was talking about earlier. It is the Runeries line from French General. I don't know if you remember that line or if you've seen anything by French General, but I love it. I love it all. And I've just been collecting this fabric for a long time. And I'm cutting, and I'm trying to square it up, and I'm as far over to the left as I possibly can get. And Matt says, Bradie, it's not gold. It's fabric. And I was like, I think it's gold. It's precious to me. But the point is, you need it to be accurate. So go ahead and make those cuts to make sure that you're going to be precise, okay? All right. So that squares up my edge, and now I need one more stack of 8 1/2s, and then my last stack is going to be 10 1/2s. My ruler is already set for 8 1/2, and there's no like checking. There's no like, oh, did I do it right? No, it's already set in place. I don't have to fuss or question myself. It just makes it so easy. So this is the last of my greens, and I'm going to move my slider now to the 10 1/2. Lock it into place. And I'm going to make that final cut. All right. So this is all extra stuff. And now I have got my 10s, my 8s, 6s, 4s, and 2s in my greens. All right. Oh, I'm so excited. 2 checks off my list. All right, so we still have left orange, yellow, gray, and then our background fabrics. Now, if you have just tuned in, I'm just going to raise my table, rest my arms on there for a second. If you've just tuned in, my name is Bradie. I'm from Sparrow Quilt Company, and we are working on a Stash Busters series. The quilt that we're working on today is a free download. You can find it at sparrowquiltco.com. It's called Stay Centered. Just put your name and email into the little fields there, and you will get an email in response with the pattern attached to it. And then you can follow along with us. It's a really simple pattern. It doesn't use a ton of fabric. Like I was mentioning earlier, they're fat eighths. So a fat eighth is a fat quarter cut in half. So if you have got one really precious fat quarter and you love it, love it, love it, you can cut it in half, put half back in your stash, and you can put half into the quilt. And this is the quilt here on display beside me. You can see how awesome it is. And I really recommend using all different kinds of colors. We had a contest in about the summertime of 2017, and we offered this pattern up for free, and we had people make it, and they all entered into a contest, and we would machine quilt that quilt once it was finished. So the one that we chose as a winner did a background that was grays and blacks, and then she did various purples for her blocks. It was awesome. It was so awesome. I loved it. I really didn't want to give it back, but you know, you have to give it back. So what's next? Let's see. Orange. Would you grab Brenda's quilting hoop from the back shelf? Brenda's Luke, yeah. Okay. So I guess I'd better get back to work. Jay Landon's grabbing it for you. So in case you didn't know, we are a real actual quilt shop, and we have a long arm rental program upstairs, and we also do customer quilts upstairs. So we've got 4 long arm machines available for use. 2 are rentals, 2 are for us to finish quilts on, and that's a computerized option. But in case you weren't aware, we are a real live quilt shop. Customers come in here every day. We do online orders, ship stuff all over the world. We've actually got our 4 oldest children working here for us. I was telling you earlier that we have 10 kids. Started this business when we only had 8 in the front room of our house. It seems a little bit crazy now, but that we started out so simply. So now my table's a wee bit too high. I'm just going to go ahead and lower it back down with my electric lift. This table is super strong. You can hold 350 pounds on it. So I think me and Landon should just get on it and have fun, like elevator rides. Plus some. We're little. Okay. So again, here we are. We've got to square up our edge. But I don't want to waste too much. So I'll bust out my 6-inch ruler for that. And I am using the lines on my cutting mat to make this cut because this cutting mat is accurate. I can rely on the lines on my cutting mat, which isn't always the case. Now with oranges, I only have 4 fabrics. I'm not cutting through quite as many. And I am now going to cut 3 2.5-inch strips. So I've got my ruler set to the 2.5-inch mark, and that little slider guy is going to bump right up against the raw edge. And then I'm ready to make my cut. And don't forget to line up the horizontal at the bottom as well. That helps you make sure that you're square. Square equals precision, which is good. You ever tried to put together a quilt and things weren't square? Oh. Someday I'll tell you about my Bargello. I almost set it on fire. But I didn't. It's finished and it's beautiful. Okay, next 2.5-inch strip. Uh-oh. There we go. Straighten those all up again. Looks good. Okay. Almost done with these oranges, and then we'll get to the subcutting. Now, I was telling you yesterday on the stream that the cutter that I'm using is the Ergonomic Cutter, and I learned a lot of cool things from the manufacturer when I was at the Houston Quilt Show, and one was that we often go to cut from the middle of our body, and what happens, if you look carefully, you can see that I've got the cutter slightly angled to the right. Do you see it? And we want our blade to be straight up and down. When we are cutting on our cutting mats on an angle, and I'm pronouncing the angle here so that you can see it, our self-healing mat is no longer able to heal because instead of cutting through the mat straight so that the fibers can come back together and heal, when we cut like this, we're actually gouging the fibers of our mat right out of the mat. And then there's nothing to bring back to heal. And that's why you start to see the gouge lines in your cutting mats, well, from repetition of cutting in the same spot for one. But if you notice, if you look carefully when you're cutting, you're probably holding your cutter slightly angled to the right. So I want you to be really conscious, really aware when you're making those cuts that you're holding your blade nice and straight. Because another thing that happens is the pressure causes us to warp the blade. And the blade at that point is still sharp, but it's not making a clean straight cut anymore. And so we think that our cutter is dull and we've just changed our blade. It doesn't make any sense. It's not, in fact, it's just warped from holding it on that little angle. So I hope that you take those little tips to heart the next time you're cutting. Try cutting off to the side. It's easier to hold it straight than to hold it straight when you're cutting in front of your body like this. So take all that rambling and use it if you like. Put that off to the side. This one is scrap. Now I'm ready to do my subcuts. Now, because I only have 4 fabrics, I could double these up. Let's see what we have to cut before I decide. We need to cut 7 2.5 by 2.5s, so I might as well stack those on top of each other. Hey. Hi, Steph. Steph is another good friend of ours. Get lots of quilty friends when you're a quilter. Okay, so my shortest one is right about there. So I'm going to cut on this line right here to square things up. Don't forget to square. If you forget to square, then you look through your pile and you've got pieces in there that are not cut the size they're supposed to be. So trim off that extra end and start with a nice straight surface. I need to move my slider again to 2.5 inches. So I'm going to line up that line with the 2.5 and lock my little wing nut into place. And go ahead and slice that. I can check that one off my list. My next set is 2.5 by 4.5, and I've stacked these on top of each other, so I'll be able to get the 8 cuts all in one shot. But first I better move my slider to 4.5. And this just makes it so easy. So easy. Don't even have to question it or think about it too much because I know that I've set it for 4.5. Next is 6.5, and then we're on to page 2. Boy, we're making good progress. So I got 8 of those. Now I need 6.5. Do we have any questions, Al? We're doing okay. Okay, so there I'm set at 6.5. I'm trapping my strips between the channels on my ruler. I'm set at 6.5, and I'm just going to go ahead and make this cut. Okay. Again, check, check. Check it off my list. All right, so what's next? Should have known it's 2.5 by 8.5. I need 8 of those, and then I need 4 10.5. So, oh, I'm starting to worry here. How much have we got here? Nope, only about 7. So, I am going to need my extra strip of the oranges. Let's make sure that I've got enough width. Good. Two and a half there. Good. Okay. So I'm going to cut 8 layers of 8.5, and I'm going to cut 4 layers of 10.5. So like I mentioned earlier, be really careful with your cuts. Don't be too careless. You want to make sure that you've got enough fabric. So I'm going to cut my 10.5 first just to make sure that I've got enough. And again, I better square it before I begin. Where's my shortest one? There it is. Okay. Get rid of that little guy. And what did I say we were going to do first? 10.5s, right? So I'll set my slider for 10.5. Cut that. Put those aside. Get this out of here so I don't get confused. And this now gives me my 8.5s, but I need 8 of those. So slide this back to 8.5. Lock it into place. There we go. That is scrap. So that's only half of my 8.5, so I have to do one more stack of 4 for those. Good thing I had this extra strip. Okay, square these babies up. Dump that, and another 8.5. Okay, now that wraps up my oranges. So I've got my 10s, my 8s, 6s. Behave, fabric. 4s and 2s. Don't you love seeing these little piles of fabric all organized and ready to sew? I love it. Let's see here. All right. Producer Maddie there just slipping me some notes. Secret notes. Top secret. Is it hot in here, guys? Are you hot? I'm hot. All right. Forgot to check these off my list, so here we go. Check, check. Look, do you want to see my list? Oh, that's the wrong page. Look at all those checks. You know what that means? Progress. Right there, that's progress. What's that? Oh, so you can't see anything I just showed you, so never mind. All right, so if you just joined us, my name is Bradie. I'm with Sparrow Quilt Company, and this is our Stash Busters series. The first quilt that we are doing this year is called Stay Centered, and you can download that at our website, sparrowquiltco.com. You're just going to put your name and email into the fields there, and we are going to have daily Facebook sessions, just like you're watching right now, and we are going to make this entire quilt all the way through to the binding. And then once we finish this quilt, we will move on to another one. It is an effort for using up our stashes, helping you with free patterns and tutorials get through your fabric that you currently own. But I will not hold it against you if you feel the need to shop, because you may have lots of reds and blues, but what if you don't have greens? Well, then of course you have to shop. What if you don't have enough background fabric? Then you have to shop. And you can justify it because it's for a project. That's the rule I live by anyways. Hi there. We've got a live Facebook thing we're doing, but you're welcome to come in and look around. No, but show her that elephant pattern. That's a cute little one. Yeah. All right. So, oh, I better check my instructions. What color is next? Yellow. 3 blocks. No. No. Getting orange. Oh, okay. So these are a little bit reversed. That's okay. All right. So next we are moving on to the yellows. So we're going to need enough fabric for 4 blocks. Now, here's how I arrange them. I spent all day yesterday, if you were watching, pre-cutting all my fat 8s. Well, first I chose all my fabrics out of my stash here at the shop, and it was a lot of fun. I was telling you guys that I personally am a shopper of pre-cuts. I love my jelly rolls, my layer cakes, my fat quarter bundles, but all of that is color coordinated. It's designed to all work together. And so the great thing about that, like I mentioned earlier, I need Quilting for Dummies. It just makes my life easier. I can't mess that up. Colors all look gorgeous together, and it works really well. So this was fun for me because pushed me outside of my box, made me select fabrics that don't normally go together. And the great thing about this quilt is that it doesn't have to be matchy-matchy. It's better if you have some great contrast because it gives your blocks more interest. And so that was really interesting for me to shop and plan for a quilt in that way. So like you guys, I'm learning right alongside you all. But the really fun thing about this is it gets you playing with your fabric. It gets you touching it, holding it, handling it. And I really do recommend pressing your fabrics before you begin. I know it's an extra step and it's work, but they will behave a lot better. You'll get more precise cuts. Like, look at this one. Like, really, I should have ironed that, right? Look at it. It's not going to lay nice in there, and my shapes are probably going to be a little bit wonky, but whose fault is that? Mine. I can't blame anybody else. So that's my tip to you. Organize your fabrics by colors and press them before you begin, because they've all been folded up in your cupboard, in your stash, wherever you keep them, in the bins. And when they spend any amount of time folded up, we know those creases get pretty deep. So it's going to help you a lot by pressing them. So I've got all my selvages lined up towards me. That gives me a fairly straight edge to start with, kind of a square base to work off of. And then I'm just going to cut along this line on my cutting mat with my handy dandy 6-inch strip cutting ruler, which I love so much. But I have to be careful. That sandpaper keeps grabbing my sweater. I'm going to get all pilled up. All right, so now I'm going to square this first edge of my fat 8s. And that can just go. The next cuts I'm going to do will be 3 2.5-inch wide strips, and I have set the slider on my strip cutting ruler to the 2.5-inch marking, and I will line up that slider with my raw edge of fabric. It just bumps up against there. Then I've got a horizontal dashed line at the bottom here, and that helps me remain nice and square, because precision is important in quilting, both in the cutting and the sewing. Move those out of there. That's my first one. I got 2 more to go. And I'm not following my own advice and lining up that horizontal line. This is one of those examples where I say do as I say, not as I do. Yes, Mother. My kids bust me all the time. That's not how you did it, Mom. Okay, so here's my last 2.5-inch strip. Now I think what I'm going to do is cut this fourth one to 2.5 as well, just in case I need it. Just in case I need it. And then I'm ready. We all know being ready is a good thing. Stay ready, then you don't have to get ready. All right, rushed through that one and did not do a good job. So I'll set this aside for a just-in-case moment. Put this big guy down here, and now we are ready to cut our yellows. I've lost my spot. Okay. So yellow blocks. First we need 7 2.5s by 2.5s. Now there. Again, I have to square my first cut so I can make sure that my squares become squares. Not some wonky, unrecognizable shape. These out the way. Here it is. So I'll cut that first edge off. Okay. Now, do any of you have any questions? Feel free to leave them in the comments there. We are more than happy to answer your questions as we go. I've got my daughter Landon here, and she's relaying the questions to me as she goes. So because I'm cutting 2.5-inch squares, I'm going to slide my ruler this way, line up my marking on there, and screw it into place. Go. And then I'm just going to slide that onto my strip, and it's going to hold everything in place. So I've only got 4 layers of fabric, so I have to do this cut twice. Oh, that was already open. Did you see that? What a bad girl. Don't put down your rotary cutter while it's open. We got a young lady that works here, and she is very new, and she's never been a quilter before, and she accidentally sliced open the palm of her hand with one of the cutters. She didn't even realize how sharp they were, so please, please be careful, everybody. I hate hearing stories of people cutting themselves. Okay, so now I've got 8 of my 2.5-inch squares of the yellow variety. Check. I only needed 7, so now I'm an overachiever. Next is 4.5, so I'm going to move my slider up to the 4.5-inch mark, and I'm going to slide that onto my strip. And with my handy dandy cutter, I'll go ahead and make that chop. So these I only need 6 of. So because I'm only working with 4 layers, I'm going to be more frugal this time, because you saw me get into trouble with my oranges, right? So I only need 2 more yellows. I'll take these off, and I will cut 2 of the 4.5s. Okay, put that one there. So now the 4.5s are done. Next we need 6.5. Is this wide enough? Yes. So I can put this back on here, and that'll give me 4. I need 6. So let's start with 4. Don't forget to move your slider before you begin so that you don't cut 4.5 instead of 6.5, and then you have to jump up and down and pout and use filthy language. I mean, that's how I would behave. I don't know about you, but sometimes I act more like a brat than I should. Okay, so now that's set for 6.5. I'm going to go ahead and cut through 4 layers for 6.5. That means I still need 2 more 6.5s. Yep, that's 4. So I'm only going to take 2 of these guys and cut a 6.5. I'm trying to be frugal now. And start with that squaring cut to begin. And what were we cutting? 6.5s, right? Got my ruler set already, so I don't have to question myself. It's just ready to go. Okay, now next I'm going to cut 8.5s. And I need 6 of those. So I've got 2 layers here. What else? Okay, sure. That's no problem at all. So Mary has asked about the rulers that I'm using here today. The one that I'm using right now is called the 2.5-inch strip cutting ruler, and its great features are that it has these guards that run down the back side of the ruler, and it also has this slider that I can adjust to whatever length of strip I'm cutting. So what I have here are 2.5-inch strips, and I can lay this out over that 2.5-inch strip, and I can set this to whatever length I want. So I began with 2.5s, and I was cutting those little squares. Move along to the 4.5s. So it just makes the cutting out of these logs for my log cabin quilt much easier. I don't have to question or line up. It's just all ready to go. And this isn't just for rectangles or squares. You've also got the angled edge at the other side, so you can cut diamonds or parallelograms or triangles. You're limited only by your imagination. And I just chopped up my very favorite fabric into about 300 diamonds. And so I am working through the challenge of that at home. As you may or may not know, diamonds have a bias edge, so that's all stretchy, stretchy edge, and it's my favorite fabric on earth, and I'm trying really hard to just be patient and take my time with it so that it is accurate, because we all know accuracy is key when it comes to quilting. I hope that answers your questions, Mary. Please comment if you have any other questions. I should also mention that these are available in different sizes. Like I said, this is the 2.5. There's a 1.5, 3.5, and a 4.5 as well. And there is also the 6-inch strip cutting ruler where you can cut your different widths of strip. So now I've talked so much I forgot where I was. I've got 2s, 4s, and 6s. I'm now on to 8.5s, and I need 6 of those. So this is 4 layers, and I'm also going to need 3 10s. So I'm going to use that big strip for my 10s. That'll be fine. And this is 4 plus 2. That'll give me enough of my 8s. Perfect. Now, because I've added this chunk onto this chunk, I'm going to square my edge again. It never hurts to square things up just to make sure that we're getting accurate cuts. There we go. Get rid of those. So we are cutting 8.5s at the moment. So I'm going to take my slider, and there is a marking at the center point of the slider. That's what I'm going to line up with my 8.5-inch mark. And I'm just going to twist that wing nut into place to lock it so my slider doesn't move around on me. And now I can cut my 6 layers of 8.5-inch strips. All right. Next, I need to check off my list. And then I'm after 3 pieces that are 2.5 by 10.5. So what I'm going to do this time is fold it in half. Did you need some of that fabric cut? Okay, sure. All right, we're going to just make it. I'm going to be able to fold that in half and get 2 10.5s. Maybe I will. I'm going to square up this first edge. Oh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it so that I'm all lined up, make sure that I'm accurate. Perfect. All right, so I'm squaring that first edge. Toss that. Move this to 10.5. Oh, I'm glad I remembered that. Boy, I would have been jumping up and down if I'd cut those 8.5. Okay. Set that to 10.5. And then I can put it back onto my little logs here, and I'm literally trimming off like a hair. It is so fine. There we go. So that gives me my 10.5-inch strips as well. That is scrap. That is scrap. Put those over here. So I got my 2s, 4s, 6s, 8s, and 10s in my yellows. Aren't those looking good? I hope you can see them. I'm sure enjoying them. Okay, we have finished our yellows, and now we can move on to the grays. If you are just tuning in, this is the Sparrow Quilt Company Stash Busters series, and we are going to be making this great log cabin quilt over here. It's called Stay Centered, and you can download that pattern for free at sparrowquiltco.com. You just got to put your name and email into the fields there on the website, and you will get an email in reply with the pattern attached. And then you too can follow along with us. Oh, I don't have my selvage edge towards me. And make this fun and great quilt. And you know what? Even if you're just a beginner, and I don't mean just a beginner, even if you have just begun quilting is what I'm trying to say, this is an easy pattern for you. It's all straight lines, and as long as your cutting is fairly accurate, you will do just fine with this beginner pattern. It's a good size, 60 by 70, so it's an attainable goal. I always recommend that beginners start small if possible, because a queen size quilt feels like it can take forever to complete. Now this one is a linen. I'm so excited to have it in the quilt. I can't wait to see how it behaves. Now I'm just lining these all up with the selvage edge towards me. Gives me a straight-ish edge to start with. And you are watching live in our real life quilt shop. We are here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And we began in the front room of our house. Can you believe that? Doing long arm quilting for people. And then we started a retail location so that we could have a more professional environment for our rental program. We would rent the long arm machines out. At that point in time, we only had 8 children. And, you know, coloring on the walls and whatnot. We just wanted to have a more professional place for our business. So now we have a 3,000 square foot studio. It's a little bit crazy to me some days. All right, so now I need to just square up this first edge before I begin cutting. Trim that off, get rid of that extra. And now I'm ready to cut 3 2.5-inch strips. And I've got my slider in place at the 2.5-inch mark already. So I'm just going to line that up. I'm going to use my bottom horizontal squaring line to make sure that I am on track. There's 1. Here comes 2. Landon, are we set up for streaming Dylan today as well? Have any of you had a chance to watch Dylan? Okay. He will film, not film, but we stream him upstairs quilting on customer quilts as well. So that's fun to watch, especially if it's your quilt that's on the frame. We get quilts from all over the world in here to be quilted. So it's kind of fun for someone from the US or Australia to tune in and watch their quilt being done live. But we'll be doing Facebook Live sessions daily, and keeping you up to date on the progress of this quilt and offering the tutorials to coach you through it. So now we need to turn these all sideways and do our subcuts. That means this big guy gets to go down here, and we are back to the strip cutting ruler. So with gray, 7 2.5 by 2.5 seems to be the rule, doesn't it?
How many kids do you have now?
10. We have 10 kids now. The oldest of our children work here at the shop. Our oldest daughter, Landon, is our shop manager. Our next daughter, Tylee, does a lot of our graphic design and artwork and that sort of thing for the shop. Our son, Gage, works in the shipping department. His girlfriend, Jay, runs our front end and customer service. We have another daughter, Annika, who does a lot of our website work and various things around the shop. And then our next daughter, Adelie, also works in the shop time to time. The remaining 5 children are a bit too young to work here, although they'll come in and bag bobbins or stock thread on the shelves. Everybody kind of has a job. Our 8-year-old son came to me yesterday and he said, "Mom, is it a rule in the family that we have to work for you when we become an adult?" And he seemed quite concerned that he was going to be forced into the family business. And I said, "Well, son, if you don't want to work for us, you don't have to." His name is Ziggy. And he said, "Okay, I'm glad to hear that, because I want to start a company called Zig's Zippers." He's already got a big plan, and I'm so excited that it involves sewing. All pants need zippers. All winter coats need zippers. I think he's going to do just fine. I love that he's got a little entrepreneurial mindset even at 8 years old. All right, I've got my slider set for 2.5 inches, and I only have 4 layers of fabric, so I'm going to have to make this cut twice because I need 7 in total. There's 4, and here is 8. Are you guys watching when I'm cutting? Am I keeping my cutter straight? I hope so, because I sure don't want to warp my blade. If you missed that whole rambling chat earlier, I was just telling everybody how you need to keep your rotary cutter nice and straight when you're making your cuts so that you're not warping your blade or gouging your mat. Yesterday, if you were watching along, I cut repeatedly on this 20-inch mark, and I've got to admit, I've got a gouge there. So that tells me that I need to keep my cutter a bit more straight when I'm making my cuts. I need to do as I say, not just as I do. All right, so we got 8 of those. Now we need 4.5s, and we only need 4, and I've got 4 layers of fabric, so that's good. I'm only going to make a single cut. Move my slider to 4.5. And this ruler is so great. It just traps that strip of fabric in the channel, and it cannot sway. It cannot move around or fishtail. My cuts come out really nice and accurate. All right, there's my 4.5. Next, 4 6.5s. Again, I'm sliding. Lock that into place. Cut my strips. Boy, we've made some good progress, everybody. This is my last color. Those are my 6s, my 4s, my 2s. This is extra. Oh, I've been forgetting to check off my list, you guys. 2s, 4s, 6s. Next, I need my 8s. I need 4 8s. So what are we going to do first? We're going to trim this edge. Start with a nice square edge. Oh, look at that one. It was way far down. I would have been in trouble if I hadn't checked. So I'm going to square here. Oh gosh, I hope I'm okay on these ones. Okay, good. All right, that is for the G file. And next is 8.5. So move my slider again. Lock it into place. Line her up. Okay. Now my last cut is for 2 10.5s. I'm going to go ahead and cut 4 simply because I have lots. I'm not even going to use that last strip, so I am, yeah. Gray is the smallest amount in the quilt. So that's 10 and a half. And make that last cut. All right, there we go. We've got our 10s, 8s, 6s, 4s, and 2s. All right, we are doing so well. Next, I have the neutrals to cut up. However, I would like to take a little break for just a moment. I will be back in about 5 minutes. I hope you'll stay tuned and join me again after when I come back and cut up all my neutral fabrics. And we are going to continue on with the progress of cutting out this quilt. It's called Stay Centered. If you want to follow along with us, please visit my website, sparrowquiltco.com, where you can put in your name and email address, and it will email you with this pattern so that you can bust your stash just like I am. All right, I'll see you in about 5 minutes, guys.
Can you switch to the little iPad?
Right. Just pretend you don't see me shuffling and doing all this arranging. Hey? Oh. Wild and crazy hairdos. Did you hear that, guys? I got prizes. Well, welcome back, everybody. This is the Sparrow Quilt Company Stash Buster series. Today we are working on a stay-centered quilt pattern. If you were here yesterday, you got to keep me company while I shopped from the store stash and selected fabrics for this quilt. I chopped up a bunch of kits and I chopped up a bunch of fat 8s for my own purposes so that I could come here today and cut it all up for the quilt. My daughter Landon is here being my sidekick and producer of sorts, and she has just reminded me that if you want to see yesterday's video and my wonderfully entertaining singing and customer service, you can go see that on the Facebook page. It is still live there. I had no idea that we were live on camera, so I'm singing my little heart out and I'm talking with customers and staff, and if you want a little bit of entertainment, feel free to go ahead and watch that. The real content begins about 13 minutes in. So I've been using the 2.5-inch strip cutting ruler. It's been allowing me to cut out all these different sizes very quickly and easily and very accurately. I am going to give this away. So what do you have to do to win it? You're going to share this video. You're going to share it on Facebook. Underneath the video, you're going to see a little share link. Go ahead and click that. This is what I'm doing today. Put some sort of post if you like, and just get the word out there. Share it with all your friends, and at the end of this stream, we will choose a winner, and one of you will get this mailed out to you so that you can also quickly and easily cut out your squares, rectangles, triangles, diamonds, parallelograms, whatever shapes you want to cut out of your 2.5 strips will be quick and easy with this fun ruler. I'm also going to give away all these bits and pieces left over from cutting up my fat 8s. If you had your eye on any of those fabrics, you love them, need them, want them, share the stream, okay? We'll be picking 2 winners. One will get the 2.5-inch strip cutting ruler. One of you is going to get this pile of scraps left over from my cutting. All right. So now that January is here, if you're just tuning in, I'm going to get you up to speed. All of us in January seem to be in a use it up type of mindset. Use what I've got. I don't want to buy any fabric. I spent a small fortune on Christmas gifts. I bought myself a bunch of fabric in December that I shouldn't have. Whatever your reason for wanting to bust your stash may be, this is the quilting series that you want to watch. We will be doing daily Facebook streams just like you're watching right now. They will be full of free patterns, tutorials, giveaways, all kinds of fun stuff. Could just be me being a fruit fly. You can watch me as I, flit around the store doing random fun activities related to quilting. But in order to get started on this particular project, you're going to visit the website, sparrowquiltco.com, and there is a spot where you can sign up to receive the stay-centered pattern. It is a great log cabin quilt designed by our very good friend Sheila Vanderlinden, who will be back working with us here on the South Side on January 15th. We're really thrilled to have Sheila back. We've sure missed her. And if you want this pattern, you're going to go to the website there, fill out that form, and you will get an email reply with the pattern attached, okay? Then you can follow along. Now, I've been sharing some little tips in regards to stash busting. I got a couple of messages last night from people who, A, don't have a stash, B, don't want to use their stash. They just want to collect it and own it, and I get that. So, for those of you who don't have a stash or don't have very much, it's a good idea to say join a guild or something like that. Plan a strip exchange. We've done something fun like this in our guild where every member, say, would bring in 4 2.5-inch strips, and they all go into a giant pile. Everybody at the guild will throw their 4 strips into that pile, and then each of you also gets to pull out 4 strips, and hopefully it's not the same strips that you threw into the pile, because there's a reason you brought them there, right? You're ready to get rid of those. Maybe you've used it in a quilt already, or you can't stand the sight of it, whatever your reason may be. And then that way you get more variety of fabrics into your stash, and you're not just dealing with the same old type of thing. So that's just a fun activity that you can arrange with your quilter friends or your Quilters Guild or whatnot. If you have a large stash and you find yourself paralyzed by it, you're just unable to make any sort of decisions or start chopping it up, or you're just too in love with it, I recommend going through your stash and just touching it, handling it, fondling it, getting some enjoyment out of it rather than just seeing it sitting on the shelf all the time. I personally experience a lot of guilt. It's crazy, but I feel very guilty about everything that I've purchased that I've no longer used or that I have not yet used up. So just take it and handle it, have some fun with it, and maybe reorganize it a new way. And when you start seeing it in a new way, sometimes it's easier to start using it up. Previously, we had all the fabrics in the shop arranged by collection. That's my favorite way to keep things. Then we received a suggestion that maybe we should arrange things by color. And I was honestly just a little bit miffed because Matt's been telling me since we got fabric, we need to arrange this stuff by color. Every quilt shop in the world has a color wall. So it turns out, yes, Matt, you were right. The fabric needs to be organized by color. So we had our daughter Tylee, who's very much an artist, come in, and she arranged everything by color. And you know what? I walked in the door and I love it. I love it. It is so beautiful. And it makes everything feel more usable. So yesterday, that's what I was doing, was looking at my pattern, figuring out what my requirements were, and I would go to each color section. Okay, I need 7 reds, and I was able to easily pull 7 reds instead of having to travel from collection to collection to find the reds in every single one. It just made everything more usable. And when you do decide on your fabrics that you're going to put into your project, press everything first. You're going to find it's much easier to work with if everything is pressed and flat and free of creases, wrinkles, and folds. We all know when we fold something for any length of time, it gets deeply creased and it's just harder to work with. So press everything so that it's nice and easy to work with, and then you will give yourself an easier time and you'll enjoy it a lot more when things are easier. All right, that's it for my tips and tricks for the moment. I'm going to get all these lovelies off to the side. So have you gone to the website there and downloaded the pattern yet? Don't forget, it's sparrowquiltco.com, and you're just going to put in your name, email, and you will get an email in reply with all your fabric requirements. Okay, I've got my pattern, and I got my little marker because I'm checking off as I go so that I can help myself stay organized, because like I said, I'm a fruit fly, and I lose my attention span, and I need to be able to come back and figure out exactly where I left off. You can see on my pattern that we've got all of our prints and colors, but we've also got background fabric. And it's not terribly evident in this quilt itself, but there are several different prints in there. It's not just one single background fabric. In my opinion, I think it's really nice when there's more variety in the background fabric because it's more interesting. It gives you more to look at. Sorry, I'm just talking so much I need to lean on my table. Raising up the height of my electric lift table. I love how this table is adjustable in height. Depending on what task I'm doing, I can have it higher or I can have it lower, and it makes it easier for, say, my husband Matt to come in and do some cutting as well. He's much taller than I am, so he can raise it to a height that works for him. When we're sewing, we can lower the table down. We can tilt this table on an angle as well, which I think is really cool. Have you ever cut fabric on an angle? It really reduces the stretch. So if I were to stand here at the side of the table and make my cuts in this direction, it reduces the amount I have to stretch in order to reach that far end of the fabric, and it makes the job a lot easier, which really surprised me the first time I did it. Annie? I like that much better, Annie. Thanks for that. All right, so am I level? I'd like a level button. Someone suggested yesterday just a level button. I think that would be really smart. Okay. This side taller? Right. Keep going. Oh, taller. All right. My daughter Landon is behind the camera, so if you have any questions whatsoever, there, can you see her waving? If you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to leave them in the comments. She'll read them aloud, and I'll do my best to answer them, okay? I'm happy to answer your questions. Now, don't forget that we're going to be having daily live streams with tutorials and free patterns on how to help you bust your stash. So make sure that you're streaming in, or that you're tuning in daily and watching the stream. And that way you might get to win some prizes too. All right. So we're moving on to our neutrals. And like I was mentioning earlier, this quilt has several different fabrics in it for background fabric. I went around the shop yesterday and I chose a handful of different background fabrics. So I've got some ivory, some cream, some off-white. I've got a couple of linens in there, and one actually has a little bit of a print, but I think it just gives your quilt a little bit more interest. Instead of just one washed out white fabric, let's put some variety in there and give the eye something to look at when it looks at the quilt. And this quilt is great for beginners, and it's a really nice attainable size. It's 60 by 70, so it's perfect for throwing over the couch. You can use it at night when you are watching your favorite show or reading your favorite book. But it is not terribly difficult, and it will be together nice and quick for you. So that is a very good thing. So the first thing I have to do, I'm going to stack up my fat quarters. Now, earlier I told you how I'm impatient and I like to do things quickly, so I stack up several so that I can cut through lots in one shot. Hi, Susanna. I'm good. Same to you. Oh, nice. Time to use them up, eh? Not at the moment. Nope. No, and we had a nice piece of minky too, but I think that's gone too. Oh. Yeah. And it has to be fireside? No. That one there in the middle, see the kind of geometric? Do you like that one? Yeah. Oh, it's more greeny teal than blue, hey? Yeah. I was hoping for something like this. I feel like I saw a fireside that you had before that was closer to this. We did have one that was in there. Are you guys doing a big trip? Nothing planned at the moment. No, nothing planned at the moment. Oh. So Susanna's here. Sorry, guys, I'm just talking. Susanna, I'm just doing a Facebook Live, so I seem crazy to customers when they walk in here because I'm just rattling off. I am crazy, maybe just a little. All right, so I am just layering up all my neutral fat quarters. I've got my selvage edge closest to me because it's a straight-ish type of edge, and I like to have something to kind of keep things square and lined up. I'm really excited about these ones. These are both linen, so they've just got a lot of texture and a different look to them. So I'm excited to see how they work in the quilt. Now this ruler and my rotary cutter make it really easy to go through several layers of fabric. You can see here that I've got 7 fat quarters. So I'm going to easily be able to chop through all of those. And I'm going to line up my bottom selvage edge with a horizontal line in my cutting mat so that things start out nice and square.
Someone wants to know if we think the New Orleans Saints have a shot at winning the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. Wait, I know nothing about sports. Matt says, do you know what sport that is? I don't. I'm a quilter. I'm not a sports fan. All right, so I got that all lined up, and I'm going to chop along this edge. I'm going to be cutting 7 2.5s. So 7 times 2 is 14, and half of that is 77. So I need 21 in total. Let's make sure. 21? I don't know if that's going to be enough. Length of fabric. 7 times 2.5. 14. That's going to be 21. That's not going to be enough. So I got to cut them this way. Okay, so good thing I was paying attention. These fat quarters, I got to turn them so that I'm cutting the length. This is my 22-inch side. This is my 20-inch side. And for you Americans, that's only going to be 18 inches, okay? So make sure you're paying attention. Turn your fat quarters so that your selvage is running on the vertical plane and the cut edge is running the horizontal plane. Gosh, I'm glad I paused and paid attention. I better move this over just a little bit. So I'm going to shuffle this over just a little bit. I need to square this edge before I start cutting. And essentially I'm going to be just removing the salvages. And I'm going to cut off as little as possible. Matt was teasing me the other day. He says it's fabric, Bradie, not gold. But whatever, I love it. I don't want to waste it. So I'm just lining up that cutting line. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut off those salvages. All right. See, that's nice and square now. We're ready to make this next cut. So I'll set that at the 2.5. And I am going to use, I've got a dashed horizontal line going this way. Hi, Rhonda. And I'm going to use that along the edge, the bottom edge of the fabric to make sure that I'm nice and square before I cut anything. Lock that into place. Now I need to cut 7 of these 2.5-inch strips. So I'm just going to patiently make my way through all of these cuts. Line up that slider. Now if you're just joining us and you're not familiar with the ruler that I'm using, this is the 6-inch strip cutting ruler. And what makes it unique is it's got this slider on the back. It's got this sandpaper type slip stop, and it's also got this finger guard on the top. So the slider can move back and forth on the ruler to whatever width of strip that we are after. I currently am cutting 2.5-inch strips, so I've got it set at my 2.5-inch marking. Now that slider has an actual edge, and that bumps right up against my raw edge of my fabric, and it holds things in place. I can't dislodge it when I've got it lined up. When I put my finger down, I'm protected from falling off the edge of the ruler by this finger guard, and that prevents me from, chopping off my finger and therefore bleeding all over my gorgeous fabric. And last but not least, the sandpaper, the slip stop that's on the back side, keeps things in place for me. It actually grips onto the fabric, and I cannot mess this up. I get no tipping or sliding of my ruler at the far end when I'm making that cut. All right, so I cut 2, I've got 5 left to go. Now keep an eye on my cutter. Am I keeping it straight? We talked about this already. We talked about how important it is to keep your cutter nice and straight when you're making your cuts. I noticed yesterday, after cutting repeatedly on the 20-inch line, that there's actually a gouge now in my cutting mat. So what happens when we cut like this, nice and straight, the fibers of our cutting mat split apart, and because it's self-healing, they should be able to come back together and kind of heal up. which prevents those big gouges from happening in our cutting mats. But if we cut on an angle like this, we are actually gouging the fibers right out of our cutting mat, and then there's no fibers left to come back and heal together. And that's what cuts those chunks out of our cutting mat. So it's really, really important to keep your blade nice and straight while you're cutting. The second reason that you need to keep your blade nice and straight is that when we cut like this, which you'll find is the angle that we end up going, it warps the blade just a little bit. And although you may have just put a brand new blade on your cutter, when it warps, it skips threads, and then you start to see parts where your fabric wasn't severed cleanly. That warp doesn't mean it's dull. It just means that it's slightly bent and it cannot make that nice clean cut anymore. So the straighter you hold your blade when you are cutting, the more accurate and precise you are being, and you're causing less damage to your cutter as well as your rotary cutting mat. So what I was taught when I was at the Houston Quilt Show is to stand slightly to the left of where you would normally stand and to cut off to the right-hand side. Of course, if you're a lefty, you're going to reverse and stand off to the right. But instead of cutting here in the middle of your body where you're going to angle your blade like this, you're going to cut off to the side, which makes it easier for you to keep your blade nice and straight. All right. I'll get off my soapbox now. All right. So there is 4 strips. And moving along. Number 5. Now, 6. Did you all remember to share the video so that you can be entered for one of the strip cutting rulers or to win my scraps from today? Make sure you click that little share button under the video and share it with all your Facebook friends. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more. We're almost done. Now, just because I have enough fabric, I'm going to cut an extra 2.5 so that my butterfly brain, was it, Annie? What was it, Elle? Butterfly what?
Thinker.
Butterfly thinker.
I can't go that far.
All right, so I'm cutting an extra strip just in case my fruit fly brain makes an incorrect cut, then I've got an extra strip that I can use in a case of an emergency. Now, did you see that? I looked down and my blade was actually like this, like totally on an angle. I have to be very conscious about it. So you start paying attention. I think you'll be surprised at how often you hold your blade on an angle. That's right, yeah, and this cutter too is an ergonomic cutter. So when you're cutting with it, you're actually pushing through the palm of your hand. I find with a traditional cutter, I press really hard with my index finger, and I also seem to really put a lot of pressure on my wrist, so then I have finger and wrist issues, and this ergonomic cutter prevents all of that. We want to make sure that we're carefully pushing through the palm, though, instead of pushing down. And I still find myself doing that. It's an old bad habit. Close your blade cover too. All right, some scraps to go into the scrap prize pile. Okay, so I'm now done with my strip cutting ruler. We're going to be now using the 2.5 inch. Oh, guys, I forgot to check off all my cutting. Done, done. All right, so now out of my whites, I need to cut 42 2.5 inch squares. So those are going to be the centers of all my printed blocks. 42 in total. So I'm cutting 7 layers deep. And let's see how many we can get. Uh-oh. See, when you move things around, accuracy goes out the window. I'm going to try and layer these up nicely. Keep them neat and tidy for myself. There we go. All right. So my strip cutting ruler, if you've not seen this one before, it is quite unique in that it's got these guards that run down the side, and what that does is trap your 2.5-inch strip right in there. And we also have this slider that we can adjust to whatever length we need. So my 2.5 inches this way, I can set it so that I'm going to be cutting 2.5-inch squares. And I'm going to lock this little wing nut into place. But what's important to notice is that on that orange slider, there is a marking line at the center point, and it's that marking line that you're going to line up with your numbers on your ruler. Not the bottom edge. That's not what you want to line up. You will not get accurate cuts if you follow that. So the first thing I need to do with this strip is square my edge. And I need to find my shortest one, line it up, and I'm just going to use this ruler to make that first cut. That was not good. I moved at the end there. Did you see that? So I'm going to re-square that up because that is not square. We do not want parallelograms. Okay, I'm going to hold that a little tighter this time. Okay, there we go. Pardon? Okay, cool. For those of you who are just tuning in, this is the Sparrow Quilt Company Stash Busters series, and today we are working on the Stay Centered quilt pattern. If you would like this free quilt pattern, you're going to visit our website at sparrowquiltco.com. Just put in your name and email address, and you will get an email with the pattern attached, and then you can follow along in the fun of busting your stash. Yesterday, if you watched, you kept me company while I chose all my fabrics and cut them off of the bolt. You also got to laugh at me while I sang because I didn't know I was on camera. And if you want to laugh at me again, go ahead and find that video on the Facebook page. If you don't want to enjoy my singing, then just go ahead and jump to the 13-minute mark where I actually start talking about something useful. Okay, so we got 7 layers of fabric here. I'm going to cut my 2.5-inch squares. I need 42, so I'm going to have to cut 6 times in order to get my 42 squares.
Nice math.
Nice math. Thanks. Math is my strong suit, actually. I'm really good at mathing. All right, 7. 14. Do you see how this ruler, like I don't even have to double check. I don't have to second guess. I just slide it on there. It's already set. The parameters that are on the ruler just keep me in line, and I literally just have to make my way down that strip and cut. So I got 7, 14, 21. See, fruit fly, fruit fly. 21, 28. 35 and 42. Good. All right. So I got my 42 white squares, and I'm going to check that off my list because it makes me feel accomplished. Okay. Next, we need 30 2.5 by 4.5. So I don't want to go ahead and cut more 2.5s by accident. I'm going to change my slider right now. Move it up for that center marking to be at the 4.5-inch line, and I'm just going to tighten up the wing nut. How much have we got left here? Nope, not quite enough, so that's going into the scrap pile. For you to win, don't forget to share the stream. Click the little link underneath this video so that you can share the stream with your friends. Maybe they need to bust their stash too. I'm always impressed when I meet a quilter who says, I don't really have a stash, I just buy what I need and use it. And I think, I can't relate to that at all.
Well, good for you.
Why can't I be like that? All right, so I'm just squaring up my edge before I begin because I want to be accurate. I like to be precise. It makes your quilts turn out much better if you are precise, and we all know that's a good thing. 4.5, right? And we need 30 of these, so there's 7. 14. 21. 28. Ooh, close your blade. Cover. All right, that is scrap. That makes 28, so that means I need 2 more out of this pile. Only 2. So I'm just going to take a single piece of fabric. I'm taking a single piece and I'm doubling it over so that I'm going to cut 2 at once. This edge is nice and square. Normally I would trim that up again, but I'm happy with how square that is. At least to my eye, it looks square. And this will give me my last 2 that I need of my 4.5s. Okay, set that one aside because it's a weirdie. And those are all my 4.5, so we better check those off next. All right. Where are we at here? Okay. Okay, sounds good. All right, everybody, my lunch is going to be here really soon, and I have to eat so that I don't turn into a crying mess. And that means I have some prizes to give away. So those of you who shared the stream, you are automatically entered to win the prize. Is Dad picking in the back? I need 2 winners. First winner is going to be for the 2.5-inch strip ruler. That's the ruler that I've been using here all morning. So if you like the looks of that, I hope you shared the stream so that you're entered. Sure, here. And Landon and Matt are just picking our winners. Our second prize is going to be all the scraps left over from what I've been cutting this morning. And for those of you, oh, it looks like lunch is here. For those of you who are just tuning in, I hope that you will go to the website and download the free Stay Centered quilt pattern. It's the first in our Stash Buster series at sparrowquiltco.com. You're just going to put your name and email in the little form there. You'll get an email reply with the pattern attached. We will be doing daily Facebook Live videos, just like you're watching now, where we will continue to make this quilt and show you the progress and share any tips and tricks in order to make that job easier for you. All right, drum roll, please. Okay, so the winner of my 2.5-inch strip ruler is Linda Kirkman. Congratulations, Linda. Please go to the private message button on our Facebook page and send us your email address, not your email address, but your mailing address. Wouldn't it be nice if I could send this to you by email? Send us your shipping address and we will get this out to you today, okay? But you have to send us your address so that we can send it to you. And the winner of the fabrics, or are we giving a rotary cutter too? All right, there's 3 prizes. Okay, we're going to give away a rotary cutter to Linda Esselman. I need 1 more winner. I need to give away these fabrics, please. So, Linda Esselman, you get a rotary cutter, an ergonomic rotary cutter. So please, again, send us a private message, include your shipping address so that we can get that out to you. Can you choose 1 more winner for me, baby? And my last winner for the day. Oh, Susan Siemens, yay! Susan, you are going to get this big old pile of fabric, and I have your address, Susan, so don't worry. We'll get that out to you ASAP. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. My name is Bradie. This has been the Sparrow Quilt Company Stash Buster series. I hope that we will see you again tomorrow. In about an hour, we're going to turn on the stream upstairs so you can watch Dylan, our nephew, do the long arm quilting on customer quilts. So tune back in an hour after you've had some lunch, and we'll have more fun things for you to watch. Bye for now, guys. See you tomorrow.